Hello everybody and welcome. Without question, one of the most inspiring countries in the world is Egypt. If you're into history and culture, that's pretty much where it began. The purpose of this video is to give you some idea of the pitfalls and the problems should you choose to go there. Now, just like a lot of other countries in the world, you require a visa to go there. You can get one on arrival, and the sort of visa you need is dependent upon the country where you're from. So I suggest that you Google that so you can get the best information. At the time of making this video, it cost $25 for a 30-day entry visa. Now, I really don't recommend you get one on arrival. You're so vulnerable when you're standing in an airport. It's a horrible place, actually. Anybody who likes to travel usually hates airports. And I tell you what, the one in Cairo is a good example of something not to like. So getting it in advance and any problems that arise can be dealt with on your home soil is very much of an advantage. I can't stress that strongly enough. And in my case, I found that the Australian embassy was lax, to say the least. In my case, I got a 90-day visa. 30 days just wasn't long enough for me, and it's a little bit more expensive. It's around $60, but it was worth it for the time I spent there and the things I did. Now, when you arrive in the country, just like every other airport, you're expecting to find your bag. And when you do, your bag looks something like it's already been through the Sahara. My nice, clean, brand new bag looked dirty, dusty and old, and the country does seem to have a permanent haze. It's a geographical thing. Nothing can be done about it, but it's something to be aware of, and particularly if you have an allergy for dust and things, there's plenty of it there. Now, when I arrived at the airport, I needed a SIM card and I needed some local currency. Now, I'd already arranged for someone to come and pick me up, so everything was sweet, but I needed to be able to call them. And Cairo Airport is one of the few airports in the world at the time of making this video that doesn't have Wi-Fi. So that option was out. I flew via Qatar and I was able to make calls and talk to them there, but in Egypt I wasn't able to. So I just kind of stood there with my bags and looked around, and this gentleman, I thought he was security, in a nice white shirt, black pair of pants, polished shoes, basically started ushering me out and said that I should hop in a taxi and I should pay US dollars and I should do this and I should do that. I very luckily got a SIM card before I was ushered out, and then I had to pay my first bribe to get back into the airport to get some cash. Now, in Egypt, everything runs on cash. The currency of Egypt looks like this. This is all I've got so far. I don't know whether there's any bigger notes than this, but this is the £200 note and £5 note, and the coins look simply exquisite. I'll make sure that I'll take that £1 coin. And it's not only having cash you have to worry about. The notes you possess can't be damaged. I remember one occasion me and my friend had a meal at a restaurant. I paid the bill, we walked down the road, and next thing this gentleman come chasing us as if we hadn't and yelling out that there was a problem with the money. I said, "What's wrong with the money?" And it turned out one of the £5 notes I'd give him was damaged, and it was unacceptable, and he insisted upon me giving him a replacement note for it. Don't go there and think that you can just pop your credit card out and do things or use your phone like you do in your own countries. That's not the way it works. And the Egyptians particularly love euros and US dollars because their currency is very weak and they automatically get a tip. Now prices are cheap, things are reasonable, but you do have big issues with the people trying to sell you stuff and basically trying to get money from you. So that's something to be very wary of. So when you arrive there, by all means get a SIM card and get some cash, and cash is very important. And you'll find that the auto tellers will only give you 20,000 in the local currency, which when you're paying for accommodation and things isn't really that much. So you're always struggling to get enough cash to do the things that you want to do. Now, with regard to the SIM card, it may be different in other countries, but when you have credit on your phone, it covers both data and voice calls. But you find that in Egypt, these are done separately, and one can run out and you need to recharge it. So that's something to be wary of. And also the local networks will not allow you to make video or voice calls over WhatsApp. You need some clever software that changes your location to be able to do that. So that's another surprise that you find when you enter the country. So moving on to taxis and Ubers, they have both. And strangely enough, the drivers' names all seem to be Mohammed. They don't speak English, and of course they want cash, so you can't just use the Uber app to order an Uber and pay for it that way. You've got to pay them cash. You can get away with things with Google Translate on your phone. I was lucky, I was traveling with an Arabic speaker, so they looked after me very well in that regard. But if you're not, it could be very difficult for you. One of the good ways to get around, a lot of the accommodation has links with local tour guides. Usually they work out to be pretty good. And one of the other surprising things are the toilets. Here in the West, our toilets come with toilet paper and that's about it. Everyone knows how to use one. But over there, they're somewhat different. Let me show you. It's the first time for everything, and today I'm filming in the bathroom, but I've got to show everybody the way Egyptian toilets work. Quite often you find that there's no toilet paper, and if you look very closely there, you can see a little silver thing which I'll put an arrow there for, and a rather innocent looking tap. And if we turn that tap, disaster, as in so many times, but that's to wash your bottom after passing. And I tell you, when that jet of water hits your backside, you stand up straight. I caught a train from Aswan to Cairo, and going on the train and using the toilet was a very interesting experience. So this leads us on to the next topic. After leaving the airport, I was ready to put that unfortunate experience behind me. But the next topic is one of racism, and there's a lot of it in Egypt, and it's absolutely terrible. It's not everybody by any means, but there's quite a lot of people with racist views in that country, So bad, in fact, that if I had dark skin, I'd even consider not going there. So the situation was that I knew Kaman's family in Australia, and he was staying in university accommodation in Cairo, and of course, fair enough, they wouldn't allow guests to stay there. So my thoughts were that, we'd stay together as we were travelling together, and I booked the accommodation on booking.com. Our names, our passports, and all the relevant details were put on the booking. The booking was accepted. I think it was around $200 or something like that for the period of time I planned to stay in Cairo. So we got out of the the Uber, and presented ourselves at the Australian hotel in Cairo. I did pick it because of the name. And they had a problem with our booking because we had different passports. Well, I said, well, we don't have to stay in the same room. We were in separate beds. It was nothing like that. He can stay in another room. I'm fine with that. They would not accept this. And on principle, I didn't want to stay there, but at the same time, I didn't want to find myself homeless in Cairo. So he went back to his university accommodation and I stayed back at the motel. I did receive a refund, but I think they touched me up a bit on that one. So from that point forward, we never again had a problem staying in the same motel. I didn't book it like you're supposed to, and it's very sensible to do. We just turn up because I didn't want the experience of losing money on account of the fact that the hotel had racist owners. Now, the food in the Australian hotel, the breakfast, was very good. The rooms were clean, everyone was polite and courteous, and matter of fact, the food was very good right across Egypt, although there was some doubts about the hygiene. When I got my shots before I left, I got a hepatitis shot, and things you should do when you travel. And one of the suggestions on the government webpage was to get a rabies shot, and the doctor said, "Oh, don't worry about that. That's just about women. They like to pat wild animals and one thing and another." And when we was on Elephantine Island in a restaurant eating, next thing, Kaman got a terrible look on his face. Turns out a bloody cat had bit him under the table. So dogs and feral cats are rife in Egypt. The locals don't seem to mind, but it is not proper in my view. Now, Egypt is a Muslim country, and likewise you would expect there's restrictions around drinking. That's fair enough. And from my perspective, I would even be happy not to drink at all. It doesn't really worry me, but being Australian and having a big thirst and alcohol available, I just can't resist a beer. And I've had an experience with a local beer called Saqqara. Now, there are 3 varieties of this beer that I know about. There's the normal one, there's the 10% and the 15%. And, well, Kaman hadn't had a drink in a while, so he opted for the 15% one. I found I had diarrhea and I couldn't track it down to what it was. It took me a long time to work it out, but it turns out that if you drink Saqqara, the higher alcohol one, you get diarrhea. So that's another thing to be wary of. I wouldn't drink Saqqara. Now, another one of the thoughts I had was that I would rent, or if the price was right, even buy a car and move around after we left Cairo. But I recommend you do not do this. In the period I was there, I witnessed 7 car accidents, and the car I was in suffered 4 of them. Now, I wasn't the driver, but that gives you some idea of the craziness on the roads in Egypt. They don't drive fast. I don't think I saw the other side of 120 the whole time I was there, even on the trains. But they just drive idiotic, and you don't know what lanes, what they squeeze past you. They love their horns. You hear beep, 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 beep. And the next shock is crossing the road. Well, remember the old nursery rhyme, look left, look right, look left and right again, walk slowly. Well, in Cairo, or in Egypt, in fact, it's just like China. You walk across the road and the vehicles go around you, and it's quite a scary experience, but that's the way they do things there. Now, anyone who's ever been to a Muslim country, they would be aware that ladies are treated differently to what they are in non-Muslim countries. And this too is something that you should be aware of if you go to Egypt. I mentioned earlier in the video about the issues I had regarding racism and accommodation. But there's a second one, and it probably applies to more people than me. A couple travelling together who are unmarried and boyfriend and girlfriend will be denied staying in the one room. I saw a number of people at different accommodation sites in Cairo who fell foul of this. And they're going to have to pop out extra money for separate rooms if separate rooms are available. So that's something that you need to be very careful with. Now, it's not only in accommodation. We were catching trains and generally getting around on public transport, and there was this pink sign that said ladies on the train platform. And being uneducated, I assumed it meant that there was a ladies' toilet there, but that's not what it meant at all. The ladies and young children had to stand in that section of the train station, and there was even special carriages dedicated for ladies. Now, the ladies were allowed to join the men, but the men weren't allowed to join the ladies. A bit of a biased thing there, and I remember standing on the wrong part of the platform and getting yelled at in Arabic, so that's something to be careful of. And I found the Nubians to generally be more tolerant than those in other parts of Egypt. But one experience, we had to catch a boat across to the island on where we were staying, and this Asian lady and this Asian gentleman were getting a bit friendly with each other, and the people on the boat actually separated them. They wanted proof that they were married. So this is something you need to be very careful of when travelling in Egypt. Now, by the same token, in two accommodation sites I stayed at, there were lonely middle-aged ladies who seemed to be looking for a husband, and they come round and tell you a sad story, and they particularly liked gentlemen they thought had money. Command couldn't understand why I didn't go for one of them, but to me they looked a bit dangerous. And while we're on the subject of ladies and such things, I won't mention names, and there's no footage of this, but when I was staying in Luxor, we were having a beer with a sea captain of one of the river boats and the owner of the establishment, and we got talking about this and that. And always in your classic movies in Egypt, you see gentlemen gathering at a belly dancing club or a gentleman's club. And the only opportunity previously I'd had to see a belly dancer was in Dubai, but it turns out that I was there during Ramadan, so what I got was a dervish dancer. So we went off to the gentleman's club, and be frankly honest, it was expensive and it was a complete waste of time. I don't want to make this too personal, but let's just say there was nothing there worth seeing. So that's a little warning for you. Now, another thing, which probably is the most important thing, it's always important to buy water and make sure you've got plenty of it. Once on the trip I was in trouble. In the Red Pyramid there's a ramp that goes like this for 80 meters, and it's quite low and I'm quite tall, and you can't really rest, and it's very hot, and I was getting dizzy, and at one point I was even wondering if my fate was to drop dead in a pyramid. That'd be something to talk about. But so it's very important to have plenty of water. And as you move around different places, the rules are different in every museum and every site. Some places they allow no photography at all. Other places they'll allow photography with a mobile phone only. And you have to buy a ticket for your camera. And the cost of that ticket depends upon the sort of camera it is. Now, my Nikon is a very professional camera, and I told a few lies that it couldn't take videos and it wasn't a professional camera. So that is an issue that I saw as somewhat insulting and something that I run foul of. This somewhat innocent looking photo is an example of how quickly you can find yourself in trouble in Egypt with photography. A man that was staying at the Australian hostel, the same place as me in Cairo, was making a video of these vintage combis getting around the pyramids with their bonnets open so they don't overheat, and got arrested. And I too had issues. I started videoing in a train station, and again I was yelled at in Arabic. However, places where you weren't supposed to film.
Australia. Take a picture inside. Okay. This is the burial chamber of the king. Granite. Okay?
Yeah. Just slipping them a little bit of cash, and they'd even suggested at times to get that perfect photo or that perfect video. This is the corruption of Egypt. Now, there is a further thing on racism. As you go in the museums and the monuments and things throughout Egypt, there are different charges depending upon where you're from. Now, being an Australian, I automatically qualify for the highest rate, and I was never once asked to produce my passport to prove where I was from. But Khaman, being Sudanese, was harassed every time, and on occasion they even refused to give him the price for a Sudani, as they call them there. And I did stand on principle. There was a place I did not go into because they wouldn't recognise his identity card, his visa and his passport. And besides that, you just got to look at him to see that he's Sudanese. After some time in Cairo, we decided to travel on to Aswan. Now, there's a range of options for getting between Aswan and Cairo. You can fly, you can take a coach, or you can take a private car. As I said previously, I had no intention of driving in Egypt. We chose a train, and foolishly I was thinking with my back pocket, and I bought a third-class ticket. Now, the result of this third-class ticket was you got all these hookers that would jump on the trains at stations, and they'd throw things like packets of razor blades, tissues, flowers, packets of nuts, whatever you like, at you, into your lap. Then they'd disappear, as if it was some sort of a gift. Then sometime later they'd come back and you'd be forced to return whatever. And if you happened to be sleeping when they threw it, they'd wake you up, and they'd expect their money, or they'd expect the whatever that they threw at you to come back. And this was a pain in the backside, and quite frankly it ruined the trip up there. So we went from Aswan to Luxor in a private car. It was quite reasonably priced and well worth doing. There was a few temples and things we wanted to see on the way, but that's going to be in a future video. And then we caught the train from Luxor to Alexandria, but this time we got a first class ticket. There was not one hookah. There was food available, which was a trap in itself, and it was a much better way to travel. So if you travel on the trains, go first or second class. Don't give third class even a thought. The extra money is well worth the improved experience. Now, with regard to the food, they come around and they give us food, and I thought, well, this is, you pay the extra price, there's complimentary food that comes with it. But then when we were almost in Cairo, they wanted us to pay for the food. And we were always struggling for cash. Like, first time in my life, I wasn't broke, but felt like I was, but we managed to give them the money, and they do charge for that food. It's not cheap either.
Now, everyone who goes to Egypt wants to see the pyramids, and there's bad story after bad story about the camels there. If you get onto a camel, sometimes they'll hold you captive until you pay an exorbitant amount of money to get off. And the police will not assist you. The police are in league with the camel operators. Our experience was not so bad, but you have a choice of camel, horse, and I saw some people walking, and I think that would be the best experience, because even though we'd paid our money, the person who did the tour with us was insisting on extra cash just for himself. Likewise, operators of horse and carts. They will follow you, they will harass you, they will yell at you. And when we took one to take us to a museum in Luxor, they only took us several hundred meters up the road and did not pull up out the front of the museum. And when we wanted a photo of the horse and cart separately, they insisted on extra money. So these are other pitfalls that befall you when you visit Egypt. And as for the health of the animals, well, I tell you what, the RSPCA would probably have a field day. They all look bony and half dead. The faluka pilots, or captains, or whatever you want to call them too, they hound you and insist upon you going for a ride. We only travel in powerboats. We didn't once travel on one, but you'd be sure what they promise is not what they give. And when you're out on the Nile on one of those boats, you're very vulnerable.
Now, behaviours is another thing you've got to be very wary of. In Cairo, I was trying to make a little video of the place to send back to my father. And this arsehole kept stepping in front of the camera and putting his hand out, wanting some money. And he was asking me for £50, and I flatly refused to pay it. And I thought of being an arsehole. I could see a police officer in the distance, and I thought of giving him £50 to get rid of him, but I didn't go that far. And another one of our bad experiences was in cafes. Now, here in I love soccer, or as they call it in other countries, football, but the time zone in Australia, I very rarely watch games. So Kaman and me would go to a cafe to watch a game. And there was this one particular cafe, you had to go through one to get to the next. So, because it was the closest, we sat down in the first one. We ordered what we wanted, and it didn't come. Like 45 minutes. We'd had enough. I think it was racism again. We walked to the second cafe, and one cafe was trying to lure customers from the other. There was even a punch-up there. And this nice lady tipped this bundle of nuts on our table. We didn't touch any of it, but she insisted that we pay for it. So these are the sort of things that happen to you in Egypt. Now, as I've said previously, the best place in Egypt, in my view, was Elephantine Island. The accommodation was tops. the people were tops till you took the ferry over. Things changed a bit then. But there was this young gentleman who invited us for a coffee. Now, culturally, and I misread the culture, when an Arab invites you for a coffee, it's sort of a privilege. So we went to the coffee shop, he wasn't around, we ordered a coffee and he didn't turn up. It turned out that he either worked for or owned the shop, and he was inviting us to buy a coffee from him, not to sit and have coffee with us. He was a pleasant sort of a chap, and I really didn't mind that, but you know, that can be seen as something very negative. Well, I'll probably think of something after I post this video, but that's pretty much all I can think of. I hope you've enjoyed watching it. I've enjoyed making it. Please like and subscribe. I can make better videos and get better quality camera equipment and everything if I start to make money out of these things. And next up, we're going to start on the places I actually went in Egypt, and you'll be able to see them, starting with Cairo and moving around. So bye for now, stay safe, and until next time.